I agree that the physical, that is whatever's measured, is relational as experiments have shown, but that must mean that there is an absolute, some non-physical, non-measurable layer of reality underlying the physical. As you know, he's putting this in brackets, as you know, to me that layer is mental. But Carlo again says everything is relational. So what is it? Relations and so on and so on. That is turtles all the way down, or relationships all the way down. How does the notion that everything is relational not lead to an infinite regress?
It's turtles all the way down, in my opinion. I mean, I know, of course, Bernardo's Katsu ideas. He defended a very strong version of idealism in which everything is mental. I think that the mental phenomena are not more absolute, more grounded, more basic, more universal than the physical, what we call the physical phenomena. In fact, I think if there is a dependence relation, the dependence relation is the other way around. So if we want to understand mental phenomena, we understand them better starting from physical facts and from that deriving mental phenomena. The other way around doesn't work, in my opinion. The other way around leaves us in the impossibility of doing science. We don't derive physical phenomena from mental phenomena, but the other way around we do. So of the two, physical in a large sense, I don't mean material, I mean physics, systems interacting, having properties, are more fundamental in the sense that they ground better mental phenomena. I think that the mistake of idealism is to don't see one of the main insight in Buddhist philosophy, which is that the mental is as illusory in Buddhist language as external world. So the self is as less founded as this glass or this pen. When I think about myself, the illusion of this is the Cartesian illusion. This is evident. This is immediate. This cannot be discounted. It's wrong. If there's anything, what is evident for me is this pen. It's not me. The me, it's a complicated cultural construct, social construct, cultural construct. What I directly know about the world is that there is this pen. If you say, well, there is also you in the world, I say, oh yeah, it's also me. And what is me? I have to do so a reflection, a story of thinking. And if you read Descartes, who's the origin of this idea, Descartes never said that the self is immediate. He said if you start doubting, then you go through a complicated cultural process of doubting, which is due to his culture, his philosophy. And this leads him to thinking about the self. And then thinking, if I'm doubting, then I'm thinking. If I'm thinking, there should be something thinking. And this thinking is the self. But the something thinking is not the self. It's an ensemble of the processes that matter does in my brain. So that's why I disagree with the idealism.
See, for me, the way that I see science is that science doesn't presume a metaphysics. It doesn't actually say whether there's an immaterial or material or mental reality. It's like a method. Now, people can disagree with the definition of science. Regardless, why can't idealism be correct and simply say there are regularities to these mental states, and we see these regularities, these patterns of perception, and we call that physics? And we perform science just as we do, or just as we currently do.
No, sure. No, I agree with you. In that sense, science is neutral. But if I want to use science, what I was saying is something much less philosophical, if you want. If I want to use science to make a story about how mental state can emerge from configuration of the brain, I have a path that I can follow. In fact, many people are following today this path. I mean, there's a big neuroscience literature, very extremely interesting, which is precisely describing how mental states and the notion of a self can emerge in the complicated sort of neurological, biological, and evolutionary story of our brain. So science allows us to make a story which is incomplete, but is in the working about how mental state emerge in the world, in the same sense in which it allows us to make a story in which how that a chair emerged in the world. I mean, how it's built by wood and built by a civilization that want to sit down, and so on and so forth. While so there's it can be done, that can be addressed by science. The idealism doesn't block science in the sense to say, well, okay, I have this mental perception or whatever, and science described them, but it doesn't allow to do the same story, to see how I can out of a pure mental state necessarily reconstruct the opposite world. In other words, if I'm an idealist, I don't have any other scientific program except the ones that are already there. I can describe chemistry, physics, but not the relation between the mental and the physical. While if I am a materialist in some wide sense, in large sense, because narrow materialism always it doesn't work. I mean, the world is not made by stones. Then I have an additional program that I can do, try to make sense of mental state on the basis of physical systems.
If you enjoyed that clip, then the full podcast is out right now. You can click around here. Enjoy. Subscribe to Theories of Everything to get notified of upcoming podcasts, as there are new full-length podcasts every week on the topics of mathematics, physics, consciousness, free will, and AI.